Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Port Moody Library book chat. Today, we are going to continue our journey around the Spaceopoly game. And if you have not joined our Adult and Teen Summer Reading Club Spaceopoly game, and if you would like to learn more about it, please visit our website for all the details and also to download one of this Spaceopoly board so you can play along with us. So our first category today, we're going to land on a book with blue covers. Now, I think compared to some of the other categories that we have on the board, this is probably one of those that is less prescriptive in terms of what kind of content you are supposed to read. So hopefully there's less grumbling from my fellow book lovers. So let's find out how everybody feel about this category and maybe the color blue. So Liz.
Yes, Virginia.
How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. I see that you have a blue shirt on.
Yes, and a blue cardigan.
Yep. How do you? Both. Oh, double. How do you feel about the color blue?
I love the color blue, and I remember one time growing up as a teenager, I had a blue shirt, blue jeans, and blue shoes, and my mom said I looked like a Smurf.
Smurfs. Yes. That's nothing wrong with looking like a Smurf.
No, not at all.
Right? It's great. It's great. Corinne, where does blue rank in your ranking for colors?
Well, as Virginia, you well know, I'm always blue, labadee, labadai, labadee, labadai, labadee, labadai. Blue is okay. It's not a color that I'm often wearing because it's just a little too like when you could be having an aubergine, why settle for a blue? But I did crack out my blue cardigan to show my support in this category.
Yeah, nice, nice. And Sadie, do you have any strong feelings about blue?
I like blue. I like blue. It is the color of my eyes, and so when I wear blue, it makes my eyes bluer. So I do tend to wear quite a bit of blue, I believe. I like the different shades that you can have of blue. You can kind of play around with the different kinds of blue. So I would say I am pro blue. I'm even wearing my blue ring today.
Wow, nice, nice. You guys all have many, many blue things. Unlike some people.
And what about you, Virginia?
So this is the story I told Liz about how I feel about blue. I bought this shirt by mistake. I thought I grabbed a black one because, as you probably know, black is the color that I get. So I got a wrong one, and I'm really, really irritated that I grabbed the wrong shirt, but not irritated enough to go return it. That's how I feel about blue. So, yeah, that kind of summarizes it. Yes, I know. So yes, neutral, I guess, maybe about blue. But there's one shade of blue that I don't like, navy blue. I really don't like navy blue. It's my least favorite. But blue is also the Pantone color of 2020, apparently. Classic blue is the Pantone color. So I think we pick a good one for this Spaceopoly board. Clearly, we did a good one. So just like Sadie said, many, many shades of blue. And I think we're going to hear many, many different shades of blue colored books today. So Sadie, what kind of blue covered book do you have for us today?
Okay, so I had to search through my Goodreads. I literally just scrolled through my Goodreads looking at all of the different blue covers that I had there. And this one, the background is a shade of blue. Shades of blue, but it's there. It's there. So I have chosen The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. And this is a historical fiction novel, and it takes place takes place during World War I and post World War II. And so between those times, it follows multiple stories kind of all surrounding those time periods. Now the story starts, and it starts in post World War II in 1947, and it follows American Charlie St. Clair. She's from a respected Mark, and she has been brought to Europe by her mother. Now, Charlie has been brought to Europe not for the best of reasons. Charlie is unmarried and she is pregnant. She won't tell her family who the father is, and so her mother has brought her to Europe to go to a clinic to help her deal with her little problem. That's how they put it. So she and her mother dock in London, and while her mother wants to continue on, Charlie has other ideas. Charlie has actually decided that she is coming to London to search for her cousin, Rose. Rose lived in France with her family, and at some point during World War II, Rose disappeared. Charlie stopped hearing from her. Nobody had heard from her for quite a few years, and they have no idea what happened to her. So Charlie is determined to find her cousin. The only clue that she has is the name and address of a woman. Her name is Eve, and she lives in London, and that is all that she knows. This woman is connected to Rose. She doesn't know how, but she is going to search for Eve, find Eve, and get Eve to help her find her cousin. So as soon as her and her mother dock in England, Charlie sneaks away and goes to look for Eve. We then get to see Eve. Now, Eve is not the most welcoming person when Charlie first knocks on her door. She is drunk. She is angry. She turns Charlie away, basically saying, I don't know what you're talking about. You have the wrong person. Until Charlie mentions the name Renee. And Renee is a man kind of changes her story a little bit, and she decides that she will help Charlie search for her cousin. We don't really know why. She keeps her ulterior reason to herself at this point. So they start traveling through France to look for Rose. Now, through this journey, we start to learn more about Eve. We start to learn more about her past and her connection to Renee. And our story flashes back to the beginning of World War I. And in World War I, Eve has been recruited to join a female spy network in German-occupied France. And this network is called the Alice Network. She is placed into a small town in France, and she's trained by Lily, who is the head of the network, whose code name is Alice, which is where the name comes from. Because Eve can speak German, she is placed into a restaurant which often entertains high-level German officers. And Eve's job is to listen to what they say, unbeknownst to them, and pass along any useful information. This restaurant is named Renee. So as our stories go on, we kind of see both of the stories happening through flashbacks, learning about Eve as they travel to different parts in France. The cities that they travel through relate back to her story. It's Charlie and Eve's driver, Finn. And you learn how the two stories might actually be interconnected. And then you learn about a betrayal that happened years before that caused the Alice Network to fall apart and be the reason why Eve specifically is searching for Renee. It is a great story. The characters are very flawed in a lot of ways, which I really, really enjoyed. I both loved and hated the characters at different points in the story. There's a lot of suspense in the story, and I was not expecting it to, which I really appreciated about the book. I like trying to figure out the mystery in these kinds of books, but I'm always just a little bit disappointed when I figured it out over. And with this one, there was a bit of a twist, so I didn't do that. This one, apart from being a blue cover, it also fits the Shuttle to the Past category. And it also just slides in the book that came out in the last 3 years. I think it came out June 2017, so it might be a little bit of a slide in there, but it would count for either of those categories on the Spaceopoly board as well.
Thank you, Sadie. Sadie, may we ask you to hold up your cover again? Because I think when you first hold up your cover, we were all shaking our head. I wonder why.
It is blue. The background is blue. If you look at it on your own screen, there's blue. There's definitely
like
blue.
A blue filter?
Definitely blue. Yeah.
Well, let's blame the screen then. Yeah.
Definitely the scream. Definitely the scream.
You held it up and we were all like, wait, what? But that's okay. That's okay.
It's not like
Hint
a
of blue.
dark blue, but
A
there
hint
was
of
no
blue.
specific shade of blue that it had to be. Yes,
A hint.
exactly.
A hint.
Exactly.
It's all good.
Thought
All
there
right,
was going to be less argument with the choices.
right? That's what I thought. But we can always find something to argue about. Always. Always. So Liz has I see that your title is super interesting. And let's see if Liz's book is a little more blue than the last one.
Well, sorry, Zadie. I think this is undeniably a blue-covered book. So the title of this one is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, and it's by Olga Tokarczuk. Now, she is a Polish writer, and this book was originally written in Polish a little over 10 years ago. Now, since then, it has won the Man Booker International Prize, as well as the 2018 Nobel Prize for Literature. So high praise internationally coming from this book. I found this one a bit intriguing, which is why I decided to pick it up. I don't usually read mysteries, which this is definitely a mystery, but the premise of this book intrigued me enough to decide to give it a go. Now, the protagonist of this story is Janina, and she lives in a small Polish town that borders a forest. And she is well known in her community. She is an Asian woman who is also a primary school teacher and also takes care of her neighbors' homes in her little hillside community. A lot of her neighbors are snowbirds who flee the harsh Polish winters. So she's definitely well known to everybody and knows her community very well. Now, in her spare time, she enjoys translating the poetry of William Blake into Polish. She studies astrology. She likes to get people's birth dates and do their charts. And she also happens to prefer animal companionship to human companionship. So you can tell that she's a little bit of a recluse. She's a little bit eccentric. Now, one day, one of Janina's neighbors, who she gives the nickname Bigfoot because he's kind of large, oafish, kind of like the Bigfoot of myth, doesn't say much. She gives nicknames to everybody. That's how quirky she is. Now, one day, her neighbor Bigfoot is found dead in his home, and in a community such as this, any type of murder or kind of unexpected death, that's big news. So Janina heads over to the house to see what is going on. She wants to know what is going on in her community. And she finds the circumstances around Bigfoot's death very odd and very puzzling. So being the curious and I don't want to say busybody-ish person, but being the curious person that she is, she decides to take a closer look at what is going on and see if she can maybe gain some insight into Bigfoot's death. However, the body count does not stop there. Soon, other people within the community start turning up dead. Also, unexpectedly, also under mysterious circumstances. Mysterious in terms of where they are found, perhaps what the staging around the body is like. And there seems to be a bit of a natural element that comes into these deaths. I don't want to spoil where we're going from here. However, do be assured that Janina does stick her nose into all of these deaths and murders and tries to piece them together and see what the possible connection may be. Now, this one is quirky, just like its protagonist. This book is eccentric, just like its protagonist. It took me a little while to get into it, but once we did start having the body count mount and Janina's eccentricities grow larger and larger, I felt that the payoff for this one was fantastic. So I do highly recommend Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead if you're looking for a book with a blue cover, or a mystery, or perhaps something that has maybe some mystical elements in it.
Thank you, Liz. That sounds pretty good. That sounds pretty good. Yep. Like a nice quirky mystery. Yeah.
If you like quirky, yep. That'll be for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Miss Corrine has a blue book, I think, right?
Oh, she does. Like, if this was a competition to see who had the bluest book, I definitely won. So the book that I chose, like, look at the blue, blue, blue. The book that I chose is A Necessary Evil by Abir Mukherjee. It is part of a series, and I will say that this is actually the second book in the series and not the first one, but it is equally as good as the award-winning debut, which was A Rising Man, which unfortunately is pretty bright yellow. So I've gone with this one. Like Sadie, I essentially went to my shelves and kind of saw what books were blue that I thought everyone should read. And this is one that I very much recommend for mystery readers, for genre readers, for actually historical fiction readers, because it takes place in a very interesting setting at a very interesting time. So it is 1920, and Captain Sam Wyndham, who is a World War I veteran and a detective for Scotland Yard, is, let me put some heavy quotation marks on this, promoted to go over to India to help with their newly formed Calcutta Police Department. Sam is a veteran from World War I. He's disillusioned. He has an unfortunate opium addiction, and he's very much in the archetype of like the disillusioned, gruff detective who's kind of seen it all. And of course, he is paired with one of the only Indians working in this police department. Many of them don't want to. It's 1920s. And he is paired with Sergeant Surendranath Banerjee, who is upright, unfailingly optimistic, and cheerful. And they are paired together, this kind of grizzled old detective and the new kind of upbeat sergeant to kind of help him out. And together they solve crime. But the book is not just that, because the author is doing something really interesting. He is using the characters to kind of represent different parts of the British Raj. So Captain Wyndham is part of the British imperialism force that is occupying India at this time. And Sergeant Banerjee, while perfectly willing to learn from the British, is waiting for his chance when they fall and or leave for him to eventually take over as the new police force. This particular book in the series takes place when the British Raj is gathering all these glittering princes from the different kingdoms for a photo op. So as part to show how benevolent the British Empire is, they've invited all these princes, given them kind of fake titles to make them feel important, get their photo op and send them back. But it is very much implied who is really in charge of these kingdoms. Our two duos have been specially requested by Prince Abir from the kingdom of Sabalpur, which is famous for its diamond mines, for its fabulous wealth, and its remoteness. Prince Abir went to school with Sergeant Banerjee at Harrow in England, and so he especially requested him there. This prince is very popular with the religious factions in his particular home kingdom. He's generally well liked. The British Raj are a little bit suspicious of him because he might be a little bit of a revolutionary. And all of these things come to a head when Prince Abir is murdered under the British Raj's watch. So our dynamic duo is sent into the kingdom of Sabalpur to investigate who might have done this assassination and for what reasons. And what you get is family politics, global politics, imperialism, religion, family ties, betrayal. It just has a little bit of everything. It is a delicious, like, sense of history. You really, really get to know the characters really well, and you also get a very, very strong sense of place and setting, which I really, really love. So I would definitely start with the first one of the series, but Necessary Evil is an excellent follow-up to this series.
So, Corinne, do you have to read the first one? Would you say read the first one before you do the second?
I definitely would. But this one is blue, so...
Yes, but do recommend reading the first one first. Read the whole series, right?
It's great.
Read the whole series. Sounds good. All right. Okay, so I guess I have got another blue book for you. So this is Fina, and I'm sorry about the screen. Fina by Nino Cipri. About six years ago, I want to say, there's a book called Horror Store by Grady Hendrix that was published. And when I first heard about the book, I'm like, I need to read this like right now, because it is set in an IKEA-like store, like a big Swedish furniture store. And I love IKEA so much. As a kid, I have very fond memories of walking around IKEA in Hong Kong when everything in Hong Kong is like tiny, but the IKEA seems so big, and it was just amazing. So I have very like fond memories of IKEA. And so when I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a book set in IKEA. Super excited. But of course, once I finished that, I'm like, oh no, there's never going to be another book set in IKEA ever again. But I was wrong. There is. And it is Fina, the book by Nino Cipri. It is a novella, so it's a pretty short 144 pages book. It is about Ava, who worked at this IKEA-like store, and she is dreading going to work, not just because it's one of those like dead-end, low-wage kind of pay job, but also because she just broke up with Jules, and Jules also worked there. And so she is dreading going in and bumping into Jules, and she just does not want to see them. Just going to be really awkward, and she just lots of feelings, struggling, just dealing with all of that. So she got to work, and then she was at the customer service counter when a woman walked up to her and said, I'm sorry, but I lost my grandmother. I don't know where she went. She seems to be missing. I look around and I can't find her. And so all the staff start going around trying to find this woman. And of course, who did Ava bump into? Jules. And so now together they have to go find this woman. And as they were wandering around near the bachelor suite, they saw that there was this hallway, and this that I don't think used to be there. They swear that this doesn't exist. And in the middle, there's this like purplish line, this wriggly line. And in front of the line, they found this pair of purple gloves that they think belong to the old woman. So they went back to the supervisor and say, we found this thing this hallway that doesn't seem to belong there. And so the supervisor was like, all right, everybody gather in the staff room. And then she pulled this ancient videotape, and it is a corporate video that she's going to show them. And it's called Wormholes and You. And it turns out that Wormholes love Swedish furniture store because they are confusing. They are like a maze. So Wormholes loves showing up in these kind of places. It used to be that there is a specific team, actually, because wormholes appear so frequently, that they have a specific team that actually address this, and they are trained to deal with these wormholes and anybody who accidentally have gone inside. But with budget cuts and all of that stuff, there's no more like special team to deal with this. So the supervisor was like, well, we need 2 volunteers who volunteer to go into the wormhole to find this person. Because what they've got is what they call a Fina. It's basically this like crude looking box. And what you're supposed to do is put in something that belongs to the missing person. And then the machine does its thing. And then you basically hold it like a metal detector, and you go around, and if you get close to the person, then it's going to start beeping at you and the light is going to light up, kind of thing. So they're like, okay, who wants to volunteer for this? And of course, who put up their hands? Jules, because Jules love an adventure. And all right, fine, we have 1 volunteer. Anyone else? And of course, no one else wants to risk their life into a wormhole. So they said, okay, well, then I guess it falls to the person with the lowest seniority. And guess who that is? Ava. So now we've got Ava, who's going to have to go in with Jules, and together they're going to take this box and go look for the missing grandmother. Corinne and I recently had a conversation about novella. We kind of feel like sometimes it's really hard for novellas to develop the story to our satisfaction, and sometimes it's like you just want more of it, or the story just doesn't quite get there, because it's really hard to, in a couple, like 100-page, like fit in all the stuff that you want to tell about a story and make it a good story. But I would say this one is a jam. It says everything you got, is like the perfect little story, and it is fun. It's about a multiverse. I'm not going to tell you what they found in the wormhole, but it is just so much fun what they see in there, and so creative. But I think also what makes this a really, really good story is also is about, like, it really is about relationship, about these two people. It's a queer couple, and they are trying to figure out like life after they broke up, basically. Like, how do you turn from a romantic relationship, not that they wanted to get back together, because they don't, but just how to transition that into a friendship. So this messy relationship bit, but a very kind of a healthy relationship, and just trying to figure out how to deal with all those feelings that they still may have for each other, but knowing that this is not quite going to work, and they just want to be friends, and dealing with all that. And now, of course, like, they're stuck in a wormhole together. Like, how is that going to affect all that? You also get a little bit of the relationship between the grandmother and also the granddaughter, which factor in a little bit later in the story. So it's really, I think, in the center of it is a relationship story. It's also, of course, about capitalism, consumerism, and like low wage, minimum wage kind of jobs, and what that does, and you're kind of looking at, well, what is better? Is it stuck in this world where you have this like retail job, or is it better to go into a wormhole? I'll let you decide. So this book is called Fina, and it's by Nino, Cipri. And if you're looking for a book that is by an LGBTQ author, this will also fit in. Nino, Cipri, they are a trans non-binary author, so that will also fit into that category. And it's a very short book, but a really, really good one. So hope you enjoyed it.
That sounds great.
It is so much fun, but also very touching in a sense. It's really good. And short. 144 pages. Always good. You can fit that in. All right. So that is our blue cover books. Let's move into our next category, which is Electric Company, which is right next to each other on the board. And Electric Company is our name for thrillers. Thrillers. All right. So I'm just going to put, maybe, let's see if I can put Liz on the screen for a second, because I know, Liz, you read psychological thrillers, and I'm assuming Cedar does too. Sounds like Cedar is quite excited about this category. So she's going to make an appearance.
Yeah, he decided to wake up for this one. Yeah.
Looking for some
Yeah,
thrilling.
no, I love a good thriller. Yeah, never a dull moment around here.
What makes a good thriller in your mind?
Yeah, so Virginia, I think, yeah, I guess between the two of us, we've read our fair share of thrillers. Gosh, when I read a thriller and I think this is really good, I feel like it's very atmospheric. And that's not necessarily saying that the setting is something that, like the environment or the setting of the story is what really grabs me. It's that there's that mood, there's that feeling that, ooh, this is eerie, this is chilling, like creeped out. I want to be creeped out by a good thriller. I want to have feelings. I either want to love a character, I want to hate a character, I want to care about it. So yeah, definitely give me feelings. Give me a mood, and make me think. Be thought-provoking. Those are three key elements for a great thriller for me.
Nice. And I think Cedar is there to, just in case it gets too creepy, Cedar is there for you. So
that's right.
I think the book that you're going to talk about is fairly creepy. One of those standard like thriller trope. I will let you introduce it.
Yeah, so Virginia and I both read this book around the same time, so I'd love to hear her thoughts about this as well. This one is Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage. Now, this is the author's debut book, and man, was it creepy. So the premise of this book, which happened to be on many summer must-read lists in 2018, and justifiably so. The premise of this book is there's this beautiful little family, mother, a father, and a 7-year-old child. Now, the 7-year-old is named Hannah. She's very bright, very imaginative and creative. And according to her daddy, Alex, she is a perfect little angel. She's very sweet. She's kind of quiet, but that's okay. She's absolutely perfect in his eyes. Now, we have the mother, Suzette, and she's been a stay-at-home mother. And as Hannah has been growing up, Suzette has been home for her and then had begun to homeschool her when the time was right. Now, despite Suzanne's best efforts, she doesn't feel like she's doing a good job. She feels that the relationship between her and Hannah, no matter how much love she pours into Hannah, how much reassurance, how much care she pours into her, she feels that Hannah is there's something with Hannah. Hannah is kind of cold to her. Hannah loves her father, and that is evident. She's always so excited to have him around, daddy's little girl. But to Suzette, Hannah doesn't really seem to have that bond. And as Hannah grows older and is now 7 years old, that sort of rift between them seems to have grown. And grown to the point where Suzette starts thinking, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's something with Hannah. It seems to Suzette, as strange as it may sound, that Hannah is deliberately doing things that kind of contradict Suzette's actions or make Suzette look like a bad parent. Now, Alex has been out of the house working all day. Whenever he comes home, all he gets is sweet Hannah. When Suzette tries to address what she feels is happening with Hannah to her husband, he doesn't see it. He kind of thinks, well, maybe you're stressed out, Suzette. Are you sure? Maybe you need some help. But Suzette, while wanting to maintain her nuclear, beautiful family life, beautiful marriage, she's starting to get desperate. And she's trying to convince Alex that, no, there's something going on with Hannah. Now, eventually it gets to the point where Suzette decides that she can't do this alone. She can't be alone at home with Hannah all day. That something has got to give. Somehow she manages to convince Alex that, maybe it would be good to seek outside influence for Hannah. Now, Hannah, of course, does not want to leave her happy home. She wants to have her daddy, Alex, alter herself. And she sees that Suzette is standing in her way of that. So she gets wind that she's going to be leaving the home, and she is not happy. So if you like creepy books, if you like suspenseful books, if you like books that give you feelings, raw emotions, where you love and you hate characters, and you just constantly are in this mood as you're reading the book, then you'll definitely want to pick up Baby Teeth. It's a Virginia kind of book.
It's definitely, I would say, one of the better creepy kids book that I have read. Because you're kind of like, really? Is this really happening? So it's really good. There's another one. I don't know, Liz, did you read the Only Child, the one by a Korean, the Korean translator one? I think can't remember her name. Mi something. It's a that one. Yes.
Yeah, on my to be read list.
Yes, that one is also very, very good. In terms of the creepy child one. Yeah.
And I feel like with the creepy child like subgenre, I feel like it's really easy to go off the rails in that, oh, well, this child is only 7 years old. Like that would never happen. How could a child be that, mentally developed to, think this way? But I felt like in Baby Teeth, at least, it was done in a really subtle way that was plausible,
Yeah.
which made it all the more creepy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, because you want it to still be a little bit more realistic. That's why you're kind of wondering, like, wait, really? Like, who is? And it's the whole that unreliable narrator thing. Like, is this really happening? Is this not? But yeah, yep, a good one. And Liz, look, Wonderland by the same author.
A new one. Oh, going on my list.
Yes, just got that whole. So I will try to finish it as soon as I can, so I can give it to you. All right, Miss Corinne, what kind of thriller have you got for us today?
Not something as creepy as that. Thanks, Liz. Just have nightmares for the rest of the week. I'm not a huge thriller reader. I will pick up something that's a little bit more horror every once in a while when the mood is right. But I find that like thrillers, psychological thrillers are a little too like dark and cynical, and I read them and I just like feel nothing, just the ongoing existential crisis of humanity and what's the point of anything. So I don't read a lot of them. So for my thriller, I chose something that was thrilling, but maybe a little bit more horror-y, but is a thriller in that once you read it, you cannot stop reading it. So the book that I chose is The Sundown Motel by Simone St. James. And I'm a big fan of Simone St. James. I just finished the book before this, The Broken Girls, which was equally as good over the weekend. And this kind of takes the premise in every town on the highway. You're driving through, you are trying to make it to your destination and you're not stopping. Every small town that you go through, there is a motel. And every time that you go past, you kind of wonder, like, what kind of people stay there? There are these strange twilight places where they're not the same kind of people that would visit a hotel in the day. They're strange night people. And in Fell, New York, this motel is the Sundown Motel, which opened in tragedy and will probably end in tragedy. Carly knows this better than everyone. She knows that motels are not safe places. She knows that things done in them are not things that usually see the light of day. And she knows this because in 1982, her aunt, Viv Delaney, was working the graveyard shift at the Sundown Motel outside of Fell. And everyone knows in Fell, girls go missing and they don't come back. And one night, her aunt was working at the front desk, and in the morning, she was gone. She vanished. The door to the office was wide open. Her purse was still on the counter. Her lunch was still in the microwave. But Viv Delaney was never seen again. So in the present day, Carly has just lost her mother, and she discovers this story about her aunt. Her mother never talked about her sister ever again. So she decides to move to Fell and try and put together the pieces of what happened in Viv's last weeks, her last days, and her last hours. And to do this, Carly gets the same job that her aunt Viv had when she was there. She takes on the graveyard night shift at the Sundown Motel. The Sundown Hotel has a lot of secrets. And Carly soon begins to realize that these secrets refuse to stay buried. And the dead are restless, and they are demanding that their secrets be told. So this is a bit of a supernatural mystery thriller. It's extremely spooky. Would not recommend reading at night. And I really like it because there's the two parallel stories. So you get Viv's story of what was happening in 1982, and you also get Carly's story of what's happening in the present day and how the two interconnect. It's got a little bit of a mystery. I love Simone St. James's books. They've always, they're like a little spooky ghosty. And this one I think was one of her finest. Yeah, would heartily recommend.
And my apologies. I think I put Sundown Hotel instead of Motel.
I think that I actually put down Hotel in mistaken because in my head, the two of them are interchangeable.
But you're definitely describing a motel. Like when you're talking about it, it sounds very much
I had
like
like this strange, and I think everyone kind of does, like this strange feeling about motels that they're just like a little bit seedier, a little bit less reputable, that there are dark things done in a motel that don't get done in the hotel. People in motels don't ask you questions about where you're from and where you're going.
You don't go there for a family vacation. You go there when you're running away from someone and need somewhere to stay.
Yep. You pay cash usually.
Yep. Cash, no questions answered.
Right? All right. So I have a different kind of this is great, like, you know, because really thrillers, there's so many different kinds of thrillers around, right? And I think people who read from that particular genre or this type of story often tell you, like, no, there's like many different kinds, just like the kinds that we talk about today. So I have got a crime thriller for you, and it is called Blacktop Wasteland. I can't see. Oh well. Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby. So this is a crime thriller, and the story is about Beauregard, who is live in a tiny small town, a rural town in Virginia, and he owns a auto mechanic shop. But the business is not doing well at all, especially now that there's another kind of mechanic shop that opened in town and is like a chain basically. So like they can offer like a lot, like prices that are a lot lower than what Beauregard can do himself. So business is very slow, and he is running out of money, and he's having money troubles, and he needs to do something. Like everything is, and there's all these like unexpected bills that have been piling up. So he knows he needs to do something. And so he decided to go back to find Uncle Booney and ask for a job. Beauregard used to be a wheelman, basically a getaway driver. So, and he's one of the best out there. And so he has in the past done a lot of heists, done a lot of robberies, and he is the guy who helped them drive away safely. Uncle Booney does not currently have a job for Beauregard. He's also kind of almost like his substitute father. Beauregard's father actually left him and his mom a while back, and they don't even know whether he's still alive, but he's in the same line of work. He was a driver also, one of the best, and he has basically chosen that life over the family. And Beauregard doesn't want to be that person. He has decided that he's going to be a family person. He wants to be responsible for his family, and so he has decided to leave that job, that life behind. But he knows that he's no choice now. He's left with nothing, so he has to go back. And so he is now trying to find a job, seek if there's anything planned. So Uncle Booney doesn't have anything for him, but Ronnie Sessions does. And Ronnie Sessions is one of those people he has worked with before, and he does not trust him. He doesn't think Ronnie takes things seriously. And in the past, when they were together on a job, he totally screwed up. And so they never got what they were promised, because he's just not, like, he just doesn't take things seriously, and he didn't do enough research. And Beauregard is somebody who wants to plan out a thing to make sure that nothing goes wrong. And Ronnie is just the complete opposite. And he's always bragging about, like, how good it is, even though he screw up every single time. But Ronnie told him, like, no, this is the job that is going to set your life kind of job. You're going to not have to do anything after this. My girlfriend works at this jewelry store, and she found out that there is going to be a shipment of diamonds, and it's worth millions, and I've got a buyer for these diamonds. So all we have to do is go get it, and then even divided among the four of us, you are going to get like a giant chunk of change, and you're going to be set for life. And with no other choice, Beauregard decided to go for it. And of course, his instinct is going to be right. Ronnie is not someone he should ever trust ever again. I think this is kind of one of those, unlike some of the psychological thrillers that I tend to read more of, this is a very slow burn kind of thriller. It's a southern noir kind of thriller, and it doesn't keep you on the edge of the seat because there's car chases or explosions or anything like that. But you just feel like at every single page, it's suffocating. Just the kind of lack of choice that Beauregard is left with, that he's back into a corner and there's nothing else he could do, and he's stuck in it. Not because he wants to make those bad decisions. It's just he has no other choices. And you really, really feel that. The book is definitely a sort of the writers is talking about what is it to be like to be a Black person in America, and what kind of choices you're left with, and how no matter what you do, you're always being pushed down, and all the things, everything is just against you in so many different ways that you are left with no choice, even though he wants to be a different person than his dad. And the internal struggle between him as the person who is the wheelman, the best driver of all time, and how he does enjoy the thrill of that. He does know that he is part of him, really, really loves that life, but also he knows that he wants to be a father, he wants to be a husband, and that sort of trying to make those two things coexist, and whether he can do it or not is sort of at the crux of the novel. And you get a really, really intense look, even though it's not the same type of thriller that you might think of, but it's a really intense thriller in that other sense. And I think I'll leave you with the quote from Beauregard when he was talking to his son, and he's basically said, "When you're a Black man in America, you live with the weight of people's low expectations on your back every day. They can crush you right down to the ground. Think about it like it's a race. Everyone else has a head start, and you dragging those low expectations behind you." And again, the book is called Blacktop, Wasteland. Highly recommend. Give you I think it's been compared to books by Walter Mosley, Dennis Lehane, and if you look at the blurbs, the advanced kind of blurbs for this book, you can see kind of what kind of book this is. It's very cinematic, very atmospheric. It's really a good crime thriller if you like that. So I would highly, highly recommend it.
Sounds so good.
It is really good. It came out a couple weeks ago. It's got all the star review because it's really, really interesting. So yeah, it's a different kind, because you think about heist. It's like a heist novel, it's like Ocean 11, all fun, and then you watch them get away, and it's so happy. It's nothing like that. Even though there's car chases and all of that involved, but it's completely different feel to it. So yeah. And last but not least, we have another kind of thriller for you, Sadie. What have you got?
All right. So similar to Korean, I don't generally read a ton of thrillers. I've only recently started getting into mysteries, and thrillers are sort of, for me, the next step beyond that. And I have kind of touched in on them, but I have not delved that deep into them. So my choices were pretty easy for this category because I only really have one or two that I have read. So I have chosen City of the Lost by Kelley Armstrong. And I have to say that I'm quite surprised with myself that it has taken me this long to suggest a Kelley Armstrong book, because as my colleagues know, I absolutely love Kelley Armstrong. I have read every single thing that she has written. She is currently releasing a book chapter by chapter on her website that is unedited, unreleased, and I have absolutely devoured even that. So everything that she writes, I absolutely love. She writes really, really good characters, and that for me is a very important thing in a book. And so I latch on to all of her characters quite a bit. So City of the Lost tells the story of homicide detective Casey Duncan. And Casey, well, she is quite a successful homicide detective. She works for the Special Victims Unit. She does actually have a secret that she hasn't told many people. Years ago, when Casey was training to be a detective, she was dating a small-time drug dealer who would often brag about how he was a member or he was related to a Montreal mob family. So one night, while Casey and Blaine, her boyfriend, were walking out at night, they're attacked in an alley. And the people who attack them get mad at Blaine because they say that he is on their turf, their territory. And as part of this mob family, it's quite an affront for him to be there. So instead of helping, Blaine decides to save himself and leave Casey to be attacked and left for dead. Luckily, she is found and she's brought to the hospital, but she can never forgive Blaine for what he did. So after she gets out of the hospital, she goes to confront him, and in the heat of the moment, she shoots him and she kills him. She gets rid of her gun. She makes an anonymous call to 911. She provides a description of the men who attacked her in the alley as someone who she witnessed killing Blaine. And she kind of just goes on with her life. So this is now 12 years later, and no one has found out what's happened to Casey. No one found out what she did to Blaine. She has told her therapist, and she has told her best friend, Diana. And in her mind, if someone finds out at this point, someone finds out, and that's just the way that life is going to go. So she just kind of goes on and lives with her life. She has since moved from where she was before. She moved to help and support her best friend, Diana, who at the time was fleeing from her abusive ex-husband. So one night, Casey is staying at her boyfriend's house, and Kurt goes out and is shot and almost killed by someone who claims that they work for Blaine's grandfather. Realizing that someone must have found out what she did, Casey realizes that she's not going to be able to hide anymore. So she goes to find Diana, but finds Diana beaten very, very badly and in need of immediate help and needs to bring to the hospital. Diana's ex-husband tracked her down and left her in her hallway very, very badly beaten. Now, Diana won't go to the police. She's convinced that Graham, her ex-husband, will find her no matter what. But Diana did hear rumors about a town. And in this town is a place where people can go who need to get away from something. It's sort of a safe haven for anyone who needs to hide, needs to kind of like a witness protection thing, but one step beyond. So it's a tiny, tiny little town. Casey is pretty sure it's a scam, but she at this point is willing to do absolutely anything to help Diana. So Casey lets Diana look into it. Both Casey and Diana are contacted and asked to come in for interviews where they meet Val, who is a town representative, and Eric Dalton, who is the town's very gruff, cynical, not very nice sheriff. So through these conversations, Casey learns that Diana is not wanted by the town. She has nothing to offer them. And the only way that they will accept Diana into this town is if Casey comes along with them and acts as the town's detective. So again, willing to do pretty much anything to help her friend, Casey agrees to stay for 6 months. And if she stays for 6 months, then the town, they'll let Diana stay. So she is brought to the town of Rockton. And Rockton is a tiny little town miles north of Dawson City, Yukon. There are no cell phones. There's no internet. There's no computers. There's really no phones at all. There's no access to the town apart from the tiny little plane that Dalton himself flies in and out of the town. You are completely surrounded by wilderness, and the town is filled with people who are running away from something, meaning that every single person in this town has a secret, some sort of secret. Now, most people are they're trying to find solace and trying to find a safe place to stay, but not everyone. Soon after Casey arrives, a body is found. And the body is a man from Rockton, and he is found in the woods missing his legs. At first, they just think it's an animal attack, but they soon realize that his legs were actually chopped off by a human. So they continue to search, and they realize through their investigation that this is someone from Rockton, and somebody from this tiny little town has killed this person. As they continue their search, they find other body parts of other people from Rockton. And Casey starts to realize that the secrets that come with this town and the place that she has brought Diana is possibly way more dangerous than it was for them to stay back at home. So this is a book. It is full of twists. It is full of suspense. It is full of betrayals. It is very surprising. I found the ending very shocking. As I mentioned, Kelley Armstrong is one of my favorite authors, and similar to her other books, this book has such great characters in it. She has a strong but also vulnerable female character in Casey. Through the book and also the rest of the series of this Rockton series, Casey grows quite a bit. You see kind of how her character develops, which I always appreciate, a character who is able to kind of change and grow over a story, because I think that that's how people are. People learn from their experiences often, and you'll see how that affects them. All of the Rockton townspeople have so many different layers to them. You're constantly learning more about them. And yeah, it's kind of that running through the woods kind of thriller, not sure what's going to happen. Someone's chasing you, need to get away, need to figure out the mystery. It is book one in a series, so it would fit that category. And it is also by a Canadian author, so it would fit by a Canadian author category as well.
I think we can tell how much Sadie loved Kelley Armstrong, because when you're talking about book, it doesn't sound like the kind of book that you would read.
I know.
Because it's so much darker, so many body parts and so many murder. And I'm like, that's not Sadie's book, but
yeah,
Kelley Armstrong,
everything
doesn't matter.
She's written, absolutely everything. She writes YA, she writes mystery, she writes thriller, she writes fantasy. I have read absolutely everything.
Nice. That's dedication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So strong recommendation from Sadie. So before we go, we like to end with an existential crisis question, as we normally does. So I'm curious to find out from everybody, since we're talking about blue cover books earlier, do you judge a book by the cover? Liz?
Yeah, I gotta admit, I do. If it's specifically a book that I haven't heard anything about, and I'm browsing on the library catalog and seeing what new items have just come in, or what items we've recently placed an order on, I do admit that scanning the covers can sometimes draw me towards a book. Or at least get me to read the blurb about it and see if I'm interested in the premise.
Sadie, how about you?
Yeah, I think similar to Liz, I definitely will use the covers kind of as a way into a book. If I am not sure about a book, or if I don't know much about it, if the cover attracts me, then that enough for me to at least pick it up and read the blurb. I have been pleasantly surprised with some books where I had initially not wanted to read it because the way the cover looked, but I read the description anyways, and it sounded like something I'd be interested in, and I was happily surprised about it. So I think that I do, but I am open to not judging a book strictly by the cover.
Yeah, I think similar to everyone. Like, if I don't know about the book, and you're just glancing a whole list, definitely I will stop and look at the ones that has a good cover, or interesting cover. But yeah, if I know the book, and even if it has a really bad cover, I will still try to read it if I know or if I heard about it and it's something that I would really like to read, but it's hard. And you kind of feel like you should have no excuse these days to not have a good cover. Like, come on. But yeah, so we'd love to hear from our listeners here and whether you judge a book by a cover. So if you can let us know in the comments, we would love to find out how you decide what books to read. And also if you have any suggestions for a blue cover book or any suggestion for a thriller and the types of thriller that you like, please do leave us a comment so that we can recommend books to everybody. And we'd love to hear from you. So with that, I think that's it for our book chat today. Next week, we will see each other again. We'll have Fiona back with us. Does anybody remember what next week's topics are? Shuttle? Is it the shuttle category?
Might be the shuttle.
Yeah. So on our Spaceopoly board, there's like shuttle to Africa, shuttle to the Middle East, like shuttle to the past, which is Sadie can't wait to talk about it. So we'll get transported to all sorts of places next week. But until then, enjoy your afternoon, enjoy your week, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.